My name's Melissa, I'm 34 years old, and I'm from Pennsylvania. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I said something dumb, really dumb, and now my husband Tyler, who's 38, has not only packed his bags, but he's already got a lawyer. And I just found out he's been recording our fights for months. It all started with dinner. Yeah, dinner. Like of all the things to argue about, right? Tyler got home from work exhausted as usual. He works long hours at this accounting firm and makes pretty decent money, enough that I don't have to work. I guess you could call me a housewife, but I've never really liked that label. I don't think of myself as the domestic goddess type. I've always been more into fashion, makeup, keeping up with trends, the things that make life a little less boring. Anyway, the argument kicked off because I didn't cook that night. I'd had a long day of scrolling through Instagram and binge-watching reality TV, and by the time 6 p.m. rolled around, I figured, why not just order in? We have the money, right? But Tyler walked in, saw the empty kitchen, and immediately got this look on his face. You know the one. That mix of disappointment and frustration that just sets your teeth on edge. He started in on me, saying things like, "You've been home all day, the least you could do is cook dinner." And then he threw in some comment about how I don't contribute financially, which felt like such a low blow. I mean, I take care of the house, sort of. Sure, I'm not scrubbing floors or anything, but I keep it decent. Plus, I look good for him, and isn't that what guys want? A wife who's attractive and put together? That's when I snapped. I don't even know where it came from, but I blurted out, "Maybe if you made as much money as Nathan, I wouldn't have to worry about cooking every night. We could just hire a chef like he did." Nathan? My ex? Yeah, I said that. And the second it left my mouth, I could see the color drain from Tyler's face. But here's the thing I didn't know at the time. Tyler had been promoted last month and hadn't told me yet because he was planning some big surprise. He was finally making more than Nathan, but I'd been too wrapped up in my own world to notice the hints. He didn't yell or anything. He just got really, really quiet, and honestly, that scared me more than if he'd shouted. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You know what, Melissa? I've been recording our conversations for the past 3 months. Every fight, every time you compared me to him, every time you mentioned his money. I thought I was going crazy, but my lawyer said I needed proof. My blood went cold." A lawyer? What lawyer? He just stood there for a second, like he was processing what I'd said, then turned around and walked out of the room. I didn't follow him. I figured he'd cool off and we'd talk about it later. But when I went upstairs a couple hours later, his suitcase was on the bed, half packed, and there were printed bank statements spread across the dresser. My credit card statements. I tried to play it cool, like, "What are you doing? You're not seriously leaving over this, are you?" But he didn't even look at me. He just kept packing and said, "Melissa, you've spent $42,000 in the last 6 months on clothes, shoes, and bags. $42,000, while telling me we couldn't afford to visit my dying mother in Florida because flights were too expensive." That's when I started to panic. I told him I didn't mean it, that I was just frustrated and said something stupid. But he wasn't having it. He pulled out his phone and played a recording from 2 weeks ago. Me on the phone with my sister, saying Tyler's sweet, but Nathan knew how to keep a woman happy, if you know what I mean. At least with him, I never had to ask twice for anything. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to scream at him for invading my privacy, but another part of me felt sick, because hearing it played back, I sounded awful, cruel even. He said something like, "It's not just this one thing, Melissa. It's everything. You don't appreciate anything I do for you. You spend money like it grows on trees. You constantly throw Nathan in my face. And now I find out you've been telling your family I'm not man enough for you. I'm done." Then he dropped the real bomb. "Nathan called me last week. Did you know that? Wanted to warn me that you've been texting him, asking how he's doing, telling him you miss what you two had." I felt the room spin. That was true, but it wasn't what it sounded like. I was just lonely, curious, maybe a little nostalgic, but I never meant for anything to happen. So yeah, he left that night, took his suitcase, got in his car, and drove off. But not before telling me his lawyer would be in touch and that I should probably start looking for a job because the gravy train was over. His exact words. The gravy train. Like I was some kind of gold digger. Now I'm sitting here in this big, quiet house that I just found out is mortgaged to the hilt because of my spending, wondering if I messed up beyond repair. Part of me feels like this is on him. Like if he'd been more attentive, more romantic, more like Nathan, I wouldn't have felt the need to reach out to my ex. But another part of me knows I crossed a line. What really gets me is that our neighbor Jennifer just told me she saw Tyler at a coffee shop with some woman from his office. Young, pretty, laughing at all his jokes. The divorce isn't even filed yet and he's already moving on. Meanwhile, Nathan won't return my texts anymore. Turns out he's engaged to some 25-year-old model. Tyler's lawyer sent papers yesterday. Wants me to sign a post-nup saying I'll only get minimal alimony because of my infidelity. Apparently emotional affairs count too. Who knew? The house will have to be sold and I'll get nothing from it because it's all debt from my shopping. My sister says I should fight it, get my own lawyer, claim he was emotionally abusive for recording me without consent. But what am I going to say when they play those recordings in court? When they show the credit card statements? When they see the texts to Nathan? The worst part? Tyler's mom called me yesterday. Not to gloat, but to say she was sad about how things ended. She said Tyler had been planning to surprise me with a vow renewal ceremony in Hawaii for our anniversary. He'd been saving for months, working overtime. That's why he was always exhausted. He'd already bought the ring, an upgrade to my original one, because I'd complained about it being too small. I hung up on her and threw my phone across the room. It shattered, just like my marriage. After Tyler walked out, I spent most of the night sitting on the couch, replaying the fight in my head. I wasn't crying or anything. I'm not really the weepy type. But I did feel a little sick to my stomach, like maybe I'd pushed things too far this time. Still, I couldn't bring myself to text him or call. I figured he needed time to cool off. And honestly, I thought he'd be back by morning. He'd stormed out before, but never stayed gone for long. When I woke up and realized he hadn't come home, I started to feel anxious. Not so much about him leaving, but about what he might be thinking. Tyler's not like me. He overanalyzes everything. I knew he was probably sitting somewhere going over every little thing I've ever said or done that rubbed him the wrong way. And if he started putting the pieces together, I could be in trouble. By late afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called him, straight to voicemail. I tried again, same thing. I even texted, but he didn't respond. So I sat there staring at my phone, wondering if I should send another text or just wait. Eventually, I decided on a voice note. It felt more personal, like he'd hear my tone and know I wasn't trying to start another fight. Tyler, can we just talk? I feel like this has gotten blown way out of proportion. I didn't mean what I said about Nathan. You know I don't even like him. Honestly, the only reason I ever stayed with him was because he had money, and even then I couldn't stand him half the time. He was arrogant, selfish, and just an all-around bad person. I didn't say it to hurt you. It just came out wrong. Please come home so we can talk about this. As soon as I hit send, I realized how bad that sounded. Like really bad. But I was just trying to be honest, you know? I thought maybe if he understood how little Nathan meant to me, he'd see that the comparison wasn't that deep. Hours passed with no response. Finally, around 9 p.m., Tyler texted back, "It wasn't what I expected. Thanks for confirming what I've suspected for a while. You just use people for what they can give you. I guess I'm no different." That one hit me like a punch to the gut. I mean, what was I supposed to say to that? He wasn't wrong, at least not entirely. But it wasn't like I went into this marriage thinking, oh, here's someone I can take advantage of. I loved Tyler, I think. Or at least I loved the life we'd built together. But his text made it sound like I was some kind of gold digger, and that really pissed me off. I called him again, and to my surprise, he actually picked up this time. He didn't say hello, just a cold, "What do you want, Melissa?" What do I want? I want to fix this, Tyler. You're making it sound like I don't care about you at all, and that's not true, isn't it? His voice was calm, but I could hear the edge in it. You literally just admitted you used your ex for his money. How do I know you're not doing the same thing to me? Because it's different, I snapped. You're nothing like Nathan. He was a jerk who treated me like crap. You actually care about me." "Do I?" he shot back. "Because right now it feels like all I do is pay the bills and make your life easier while you sit around and complain that I don't make enough money. Do you even hear yourself?" I didn't know how to respond to that. Part of me wanted to defend myself, to explain that I wasn't just sitting around all day. I kept the house looking nice, made sure I looked good for him, and tried to make our life together comfortable. But another part of me knew that wasn't what he wanted to hear. "Tyler," I said finally, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm sorry if I've made you feel unappreciated. I didn't mean to. But you can't honestly think I'm only with you for your money." "Can't I?" he said. "Because from where I'm standing, that's exactly how it looks. And if that's the case, then maybe I'm wasting my time here." That stung, like really stung. I wanted to yell at him, to tell him he was being unfair. But deep down, I knew he had a point. I'd never thought of myself as someone who used people, but when I looked back at my relationships, the pattern was hard to ignore. Nathan was rich, so I put up with him even though he was awful. And Tyler wasn't Nathan, but I'd definitely been drawn to the stability he offered. But that didn't mean I didn't love him. Did it? "Tyler, please don't do this," I said, my voice cracking a little. "You're blowing this out of proportion. I made a mistake, okay? But that doesn't mean I don't love you." There was a long pause, and for a moment I thought I'd gotten through to him. But then he said, "I need some time to think, Melissa. Don't call me again until I reach out." And just like that, the call ended. Now I'm sitting here replaying our conversation in my head and wondering if I've completely screwed this up. I know I said some things I shouldn't have, but does that really make me the bad guy? It's not like Tyler's perfect either. He works all the time, barely pays attention to me, and then gets mad when I don't live up to his expectations. Is it so wrong to want more than just being a housewife? Tyler's silence over the next few days was unbearable. I went back and forth between being angry at him for leaving and feeling like I should apologize more. But I couldn't bring myself to call him again after what he'd said. I hate being ignored, and the fact that he was dragging this out was starting to mess with my head. By day 3, I was so worked up I had decided to do something I knew I shouldn't. I drove to his office. I figured if he wasn't going to come home, he had to be somewhere, and I was sick of sitting around waiting for him to think. When I got there, I stayed in the car for a few minutes, debating whether I should actually go inside. But the longer I sat there, the angrier I got. And before I knew it, I was walking into the lobby. The receptionist gave me a weird look when I asked for Tyler, but she didn't say anything and called up to his floor. A minute later, one of his coworkers came down. Not Tyler, but some guy I'd only met once or twice at company parties. He looked uncomfortable as he told me Tyler wasn't there. Apparently, he'd taken a few personal days, which only made me more annoyed. He wasn't at work. He wasn't at home. Where was he? I got back in my car, fuming. Part of me wondered if he'd gone to stay with one of his friends, but Tyler isn't exactly the type to crash on someone's couch. He's too proud for that. Then a darker thought crossed my mind. What if he was staying with someone else? Like a woman? I hated that my mind even went there, but the fact that he wasn't telling me where he was made me suspicious. I went home, grabbed a glass of wine, and started scrolling through his social media. There was nothing new, of course, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That's when I remembered his email. Tyler isn't exactly tech-savvy, and his passwords are ridiculously predictable. I told myself I wasn't going to actually snoop, just check to see if there were any clues about where he might be. But the second I logged in, I saw an email that made my stomach drop. It was from a real estate agent. The subject line read, "Follow up on your inquiry." My heart started racing as I clicked on it. The email was short, just a confirmation of an appointment to tour an apartment later that week. An apartment. Not a house, not something for the two of us. Just him. I felt like the ground had shifted under me. Was he seriously looking for a place to live without even talking to me? The nerve. I grabbed my phone and called him, but of course it went straight to voicemail again. This time I left a message. So what, you're apartment hunting now? Is this your big solution, Tyler? Running away instead of dealing with our problems? Call me back. He didn't. Not that night and not the next day. I spent the whole day spiraling, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to drive straight to that real estate office and make a scene, but I knew that wouldn't help. Instead, I texted him again, this time trying to be more measured. Tyler, I saw the email about the apartment. Can we please just talk? If you're that unhappy, I deserve to know why. It wasn't until the next morning that he finally replied. His text was short and to the point. I'm not making any decisions yet. I just need space. That didn't exactly calm me down, but at least it was something. Still, I couldn't stop obsessing over the idea of him leaving for good. It felt like the more I tried to fix things, the worse they got. When I finally heard from Tyler, it wasn't the explanation I'd hoped for. He texted me the address of a coffee shop downtown and told me to meet him there if I wanted to talk. I thought it was weird he didn't want to meet at the house, but I didn't question it. At that point, I just wanted answers. When I got there, he was already sitting at a table in the corner, looking calm and composed in a way that made my blood boil. Here I was, losing sleep, and he looked like he hadn't a care in the world. I slid into the chair across from him, arms crossed, and went straight for it. "What's this about you looking at apartments?" I demanded. He didn't flinch. He just took a sip of his coffee and said, "It's exactly what it looks like, Melissa. I'm moving out." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. "You're what?" He leaned back in his chair, looking almost bored. "I've already started the paperwork for the divorce. I've been talking to a lawyer for weeks, and I've just been waiting to get a few things in place before I told you." It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Divorce? I knew we'd been fighting, but I didn't think it was that serious. Are you kidding me right now? You're ending our marriage because of one stupid argument? Tyler let out a bitter laugh. "Melissa, this isn't about one argument. This is about years of me trying to make this work while you take and take and take. I'm done." His words hit me like a slap in the face. But what really caught my attention was the way he was looking at me. Not angry, not sad, just done. He'd made up his mind, and there was no changing it. "Don't act like I'm some villain here," I snapped. "I've put up with plenty from you, too. You're always working, you never make time for me, and now you're just walking away without even giving me a chance to fix things." He shook his head. "You had plenty of chances, Melissa. My family warned me about you. My friends warned me about you. But I didn't listen because I thought I could make it work. I thought if I loved you enough, you'd change. But you haven't. And I'm done sacrificing my happiness for someone who doesn't appreciate me." I opened my mouth to argue, but he cut me off. "And before you ask, yes, there's someone else." That stopped me cold. "You're cheating on me?" I spat, my voice louder than I'd intended. "Don't even try to play the victim," he said, his tone sharp. "You've been using me from day one. At least with her, I feel like a person, not just a wallet." "Her?" The word echoed in my head like a siren. "Who is she?" I demanded. "How long has this been going on?" Tyler sighed like he couldn't believe I was even asking. "Her name is Rebecca. She's been a friend for a while, but things didn't get serious until I realized this marriage was over. She actually listens to me, Melissa. She supports me, and unlike you, she doesn't make me feel like I'm never enough." I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath me. This couldn't be happening. Tyler wasn't supposed to be the one to leave. He wasn't supposed to be the one to find someone else. That was supposed to be my move, not his. "So what?" I snapped, grasping for something to hurt him with. "You think she's so perfect? Just wait. She'll get tired of you too once she realizes you're not exactly a prize." Tyler just shook his head, looking at me like I was a stranger. "I've already wasted too much time on you, Melissa. I'm not doing this anymore. The papers will be ready next week. You can keep the house, but I'm out." He stood up, grabbed his coat, and walked out without looking back. I sat there staring at the empty chair across from me, feeling a mix of anger, humiliation, and something I didn't want to name. Regret. The worst part? I couldn't even blame him. Not really. For years, I'd taken him for granted, pushing his buttons just to see how far I could go. I never thought he'd actually leave, and now that he had, I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to fight for him, to prove that I could change, but another part of me knew it was too late. Tyler had made up his mind, and there was no changing it. I sat there for a long time trying to figure out my next move, but deep down, I already knew the truth. Tyler was gone, and it was my fault. The divorce didn't take long. Tyler was efficient, just like he was with everything else in his life. Within a month, the papers were signed, the assets were divided, and I was officially on my own. He kept his promise about the house, which at the time I thought was a win. But now, sitting in this big empty place, it feels more like a reminder of everything I lost. The first few weeks after he moved out were the worst. I'd sit in the living room at night, staring at my phone, hoping he'd call or text to say he'd made a mistake. But he didn't. Instead, I saw photos of him on social media looking happier than I'd seen him in years. And always there she was. Rebecca. She was everything I wasn't. Sweet, supportive, probably annoyingly low maintenance. The kind of woman who wouldn't roll her eyes at him when he talked about work or complain about cooking dinner. Seeing them together made my stomach turn. It wasn't just jealousy, though there was plenty of that. It was this gnawing realization that he looked free. Like he'd been carrying the weight of our marriage for so long, and now that it was gone, he could finally breathe. Meanwhile, I was suffocating. The bills started piling up faster than I expected. Sure, I got spousal support, but it wasn't enough to cover my lifestyle. I had to cut back on everything. No more online shopping sprees, no more weekly salon appointments, no more dinners out with friends. I even had to sell some of my designer bags just to keep up with the mortgage. And as much as I hated to admit it, I was running out of options. At first, I told myself I'd figure something out. Maybe I'd get a job, though I wasn't exactly sure what I was qualified to do. I hadn't worked since my early 20s, and even then it was just a string of retail jobs I barely showed up for. The idea of starting over at 34 with no skills and a resume that could fit on a post-it was terrifying. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the loneliness. For years, I'd taken for granted that Tyler would always be there. Even when we fought, I knew he'd come home at the end of the day. Now, the silence in the house was deafening. I thought about reaching out to friends, but most of them were married with kids, too busy with their own lives to deal with my drama. And the ones who did call only wanted to gossip about the divorce, not actually help. I tried dating, mostly out of spite. I downloaded a couple of apps and went on a few dates, but it was a disaster. Every guy I met seemed either uninterested or way too interested in all the wrong ways. None of them were Tyler. Not that I'd ever admit it, but I missed him. I missed the way he'd laugh at my terrible jokes, the way he'd roll his eyes when I spent too much on shoes, but still pay the credit card bill without saying a word. I even missed the fights. As ridiculous as that sounds, at least when we were fighting, he still cared enough to argue. One night, after too many glasses of wine, I did something I promised myself I wouldn't. I called him. It went straight to voicemail, of course, but I left a message anyway. I don't know why I'm calling. I guess I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I know I didn't treat you the way I should have, and I don't blame you for leaving. I hope you're happy. He never called back. But honestly, I didn't expect him to. He'd moved on, and it was time for me to do the same. It's been 2 weeks since I posted this, and things have gotten so much worse. Tyler's lawyer subpoenaed my phone records and found more than just texts to Nathan. Apparently, I'd also been talking to 2 other exes. Just friendly conversations, I swear, but try explaining that to a judge. Tyler moved in with that woman from his office, Rebecca. Her name is Rebecca, and she's everything I'm not. Has her own career, drives a car she paid for herself, probably cooks dinner every night. From what Tyler's brother told me, she makes him happier than I ever did. I had to get a job at a department store selling makeup. The same brands I used to buy without thinking twice. My first paycheck was less than what I used to spend on a single shopping trip. My coworkers are all 20-somethings who have no idea why I'm there at my age. Nathan finally responded to my texts, but only to send a cease and desist letter from his lawyer. Apparently, his fiancée found our messages and threatened to leave him if he didn't cut me off completely. So much for thinking I had a backup plan. My lawyer says I should take Tyler's settlement offer. It's generous considering the evidence he has, but generous means I get 6 months of alimony and nothing else. No house, no car. He's keeping the BMW since he paid for it. No retirement accounts. Nothing. I'm moving back in with my parents next week. At 34 years old, I'm starting over with nothing but a retail job and a bunch of designer clothes I'll probably have to sell to pay my lawyer. The humiliation is unbearable. Sometimes late at night, I look at Tyler's Instagram through a fake account I created. He looks younger, happier, like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders. Rebecca posts pictures of them cooking together, hiking, doing all the things I said were boring. He's living his best life while I'm living with my parents. The last time we spoke was at the lawyer's office signing papers. He looked right through me like I was a stranger. When I tried to apologize, he just said, "Melissa, I gave you everything I had, and it was never enough. I hope someday you figure out what actually matters in life." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that I did love him, that Nathan meant nothing. But the words wouldn't come, because deep down I knew he was right. I'd spent our entire marriage wishing he was someone else, comparing him to men who didn't even want me anymore. My mom keeps trying to set me up with men from her church. Good, steady guys with regular jobs. But I can't bring myself to care. What's the point? I had a good man, a faithful man who loved me enough to plan secret romantic gestures while I was texting my ex behind his back. The divorce was finalized yesterday. Tyler didn't even show up, just his lawyer. I signed the papers with shaking hands and walked out of that office with nothing but a folder of documents that proved I'd thrown away the best thing in my life. Funny thing is, everyone warned me. Even Nathan used to say I didn't know how good I had it with Tyler. But I was too busy chasing some fantasy to see what was right in front of me. Now Tyler's building a new life with someone who appreciates him, and I'm folding clothes at Nordstrom trying not to cry when I see couples shopping together. I know I did this to myself, but knowing doesn't make it hurt any less. The house sold last week. Tyler and Rebecca bought a new place together with the money he'd been secretly saving. They're already talking about kids, something I always said I wasn't ready for. Maybe that's my real tragedy. I was never ready for anything real. Too busy living in a fantasy world where men were supposed to be like romance novel heroes instead of actual humans who were doing their best. Now I'm 34, single, living with my parents, and selling makeup to women who have what I threw away. But hey, at least I still have my designer bags. For now, anyway. Until I have to sell those too. Karma's funny like that, isn't it?